never, well, it will vary to the horse.
Absolutely.
And I would say these days it's probably no more than 12. Rarely more than 12, quite often less than 12. Now, earlier he was quite resentful of me manipulating his needle. And now I'm just able to advance that without a sign of it being disturbing things.
You say these days, it sounds like you used to use it.
Yeah, when you first study it, you get overwhelmed by how many concepts, routine, and what they would do, because a lot of it was burning. So they would take poker-like size instruments, put it in the fire, get it red hot, and burn sides.
We have this in the
And-
same
Right, yeah. Yeah, and we had an interesting historian come who's an expert on Eastern, Mongolian, Egyptian, and that area, ancient culture, medicine, food culture, and the Chinese already definitely had collaboration with Arabs way before we did, before there's any written records of it, because he's been able to find that there's just too much in the old literature of the Arab, the Mongol, and the Chinese for that to be a coincidence. So there was a lot of cross kind of fertilizing of medical philosophy and cultural sort of understanding about health and welfare. And Chinese aren't great believers in the welfare of an animal. Or not. No. They can be quite brutal. So you see them, tying a bunch of chickens' legs, live chickens' legs together and hanging them off the bicycle, flapping while they're riding through the streets, to bring the supper home. And so we wouldn't share a lot of common ground on what we regard as suitable care of an animal. And they don't have a lot of density animals, it's important already, but I suppose with them kind of coming into the so-called modern world, that they will be, I know small animal ownership has gone up a lot in China, and dogs and cats didn't rate enough to have acupuncture done on them at all historically in China. It's not until the 50s when the Western world started getting interested in acupuncture. So there were no historical acupuncture charts for what we regard as our closest friends in the domestic animal world. Just checking it out again. So just another little muscle jump response, another one there. And again, getting these needles in is a lot of work because it's so thin and weak relative to a very thick hide. The skin at the thinnest place is 20 times thicker than ours. And it's much thicker than that back here.
How would you leave it for instance you would suggest to an owner not treatment?
As a rule of thumb, weekly is good enough for almost anything. Twice a week would be more efficient for certain really chronic things. But I generally would go weekly and for about 3 treatments. And once an owner is actually in the follow-up on patient finds an improvement, certainly when the owner starts to see that there's a good response, they can see things and report things that making sure that there's improvement. And I got others that are not.
I was going to say maintenance.
So maintenance, yeah. And if they've had a course and then they have a gap of many months, usually there's a memory response so that one treatment 4, 5, 6 months even later there's a memory response enough to where you don't have to go through the whole flower again. You might do 2 in a week or 2. They've shown that there is a memory response to autonomics. And I did it when I was sonographing. Occasionally I had horses here that I could photograph daily. One of them was my own horse. And his very first acupuncture treatment, he also had these very extreme cold patterns. And his first treatment has a slower onset, but it's a positive onset of this opioid thing up here in the brain, the beating endorphins. And the high frequency has a rapid onset of spinal similar overall effects, just that they are elicited through high frequency stim and low frequency stim. And I think this work that shows that 15 hertz will get both of the users involved. Definitely the low hertz is a more efficient way to upregulate. You're just trying to up their own gain, basically. Their own heating gain is being enhanced or upregulated by stuff that acupuncture does, stuff that manual medicine, physical therapies do. And a lot of you will get courses probably that look similar when you give them a thorough hands-on, assessment plus a therapy, stretch therapy, touch therapy, and so forth. That's how it works. And the needles don't need to be in more than about 20 to 30 minutes. The more painful they are, and the more chronic they are, the lengthier ideally the needles will be in there for 20 minutes is almost a minimum. And I have left them up for an hour. You go do something else and they're all right. But 20 minutes. He caused enormous pain to me, and I was swearing and everything behind him while he was really pressing hard. But he numbed this thing out. And I walked out stiff with it late, and that night the mass was half, and he said come back tomorrow, and I did the same thing again. And then he asked me to jog about 3 miles, and I had just been told to keep my leg up for 3 weeks and do all this stuff. And my job the following Monday was to take sole charge of a private solo equine vet in Virginia who hadn't had a holiday in about 4 years. And I was his local vet, which had been signed up for months before this, thinking on the Wednesday when I got told to stay off that lake for 3 weeks, can I bear ringing this guy and say, I'm sorry, I'm fit to work. Michael Farley had me back at work on the Monday. It was unbelievable. So I thought, I'm on this pain medication, and I have this pain, and this instrument got rid of that pain. It's extraordinary thing. I mean, I'm not saying that the anti-inflammatories weren't doing a part, but it was not making me weight-bearing or tolerant to anything. Putting clothes on was impossible because pressure on the thing was just impossible. So that's why I got excited about it, and then luck had it. I saw an introductory equine acupuncture little intro thing. And then, and I had my own horse who was a teenager, hunter, thoroughbred, terrible conformations, horrible feet, And I knew what he was like on duty to hunt because he had to be on it often because he'd be laying on feet otherwise. But he'd become a crab behind, coming out of the box, like this hardly lifting a leg or all that sort of thing. And I went home and just with a weekend introductory thing, just palpating, finding these places that make him sit down, and just I didn't have any Chinese needles, just used some hypodermic needles, injected a bit of B12, which is a popular thing in America, this injection, acupuncture, they call it. And in 3 days, this horse went from this old, crabby, grouchy bastard to hopping out of his stall and fly-bucking on an incline down this hill in this paddock like a 2-year-old idiot. And riding him was like this. Where'd you get all this? What's going on? What's all this stuff back here from? So it didn't take long to get addicted. So he's a dose of movement.
Just on the station, how uncomfortable living having acupuncture is it if they move with the needle or the muscle? Can they feel it?
When I needle myself, I know how uncomfortable it can be. Once I needle certain places, you mustn't flex that limb. So there's especially certain points, like this is very potent, really strong point, large intestine 4, Oku. And once that's in there, I can't use my hand to needle anymore. So if I'm going to needle it on myself, I can only needle one side, and then it's too strong not to sit stomach 36 here, sit down and put the needle in and don't stand up. So, a human patient needs to be sitting or lying comfortably and preferably not moving. You'll feel it if you really flex the muscles kind of putting torque on the needle.